Beginning. The princess no one chose. The first time I saw Princess Alira, the entire royal court was trying not to look at her. That should have been my first clue. The throne hall of Aurelian Prime was one of the most magnificent places in the galaxy. Columns of living crystal stretched toward a glowing ceiling that mimicked the stars outside. Dozens of alien diplomats filled the chamber, their robes shimmering with colors from 100 different worlds. At the far end of the hall sat Queen Veilira, ruler of the Aurelian kingdom, and beside her stood her daughter, Princess Alira. She wasn't what the other nobles expected. Her hair shimmered silver like her mother's, but her eyes, those were different. They were human brown, and the faint patterns of alien light running along Aurelian skin were dim on her arms, barely visible. She looked almost ordinary. That was the problem. The Aurelians were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. Their beauty was legendary, tall, luminous beings whose presence alone could silence a room. Alira looked like she belonged to two worlds instead of one. And in their eyes, that made her imperfect. I stood among the human delegation, watching the court ceremony unfold. This was the choosing. For centuries, the Aurelian royal family had followed a tradition. When a princess reached maturity, the great houses and allied species would compete for the honor of forming a political union with her. It wasn't just marriage. It was alliance, power, the future of kingdoms. One by one, nobles approached the throne. One by one, they bowed respectfully and then declined. I regret that my house must refuse the bond. My people cannot accept the union. The compatibility risks are too great. Their excuses sounded polite, but everyone knew the truth. They didn't want her. Alira stood perfectly still through it all, hands folded in front of her, expression calm. Only the slightest tightening around her eyes betrayed how much it hurt. Finally, the chamber fell silent. Queen Veilira's voice cut through the air. Is there anyone present who will accept the bond? No one moved. The silence became unbearable. Then the queen sighed, quietly but heavily. She turned to Alira and said something that made my chest tighten. Perhaps the galaxy simply isn't ready for you. Something inside me snapped. I stepped forward. The human who shouldn't have spoken. Every eye in the chamber turned toward me. Humans were new to galactic politics. Compared to ancient civilizations like the Aurelians, we were practically children. The human ambassador beside me whispered urgently, "Daniel, sit down." Too late. I was already walking across the crystal floor. The sound of my boots echoed through the hall like a challenge. The guards tensed. The nobles murmured. And Princess Alira looked at me with clear surprise. I stopped in front of the throne and bowed respectfully. "Your Majesty." Queen Veilira studied me carefully. "You are not part of the choosing," she said calmly. "No," I admitted. "Then why have you stepped forward?" The entire court held its breath. I glanced briefly at Alira. Up close, she looked even more nervous than before, though she was trying very hard not to show it. I turned back to the queen. Because someone should. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. The queen raised a hand, and the room fell silent again. "You would accept the bond?" she asked. I would. The reaction from the nobles was immediate. A human. This is absurd. An insult to the crown. Queen Veilira ignored them. Her eyes remained fixed on me. "Do you understand what you are offering, Mr. Daniel Reyes?" "Mr. Reyes," she continued, "the royal bond is not symbolic. It means joining bloodlines, creating heirs, sharing the future of our kingdom." "I understand." She tilted her head slightly. "Then answer me honestly. Why would you do this?" I hesitated. Then I told the truth. Because everyone else in this room just judged your daughter by what she isn't. I looked at Alira again. But from where I'm standing, She seems pretty incredible. The silence that followed was deeper than before. Princess Alira blinked slowly, as if she hadn't expected anyone to say that. Queen Valira leaned back in her throne. Then unexpectedly she smiled. Middle, the princess behind the crown. 2 days later, I was walking through the royal gardens with Princess Alira. The gardens floated inside a massive dome overlooking the planet's rings. Crystal trees glowed softly in the twilight while alien birds glided silently between branches. Alira walked beside me quietly. Finally, she spoke. You didn't have to do that. Do what? Volunteer. I shrugged. Someone had to. She stopped walking. You realize the court thinks you're insane. That's not new for humans. She laughed softly. It was the first time I'd heard her laugh. It was nice. Alira resumed walking. I'm not what my people expected, she admitted after a moment. I figured. My father was human. That surprised me. The queen fell in love with a human explorer many years ago. Their union was controversial, but it worked. For them. But for you? I asked. She looked out across the glowing gardens. For me, it meant never truly belonging. Her voice was calm, but the pain beneath it was obvious. To the Aurelians, I am too human. She glanced at me. And to humans, I am too alien. I rubbed the back of my neck. Well, welcome to the club. What do you mean? Humans don't really belong anywhere either, I said with a grin. We just sort of show up and start building things. Alira smiled faintly. That is one way to describe your species. We reached the edge of the garden, overlooking the stars. Why did you really volunteer? She asked quietly. I considered lying. Instead, I said the truth. Because when the entire room rejected you, it didn't break. She turned toward me. You just stood there. Calm. Strong. Like you'd already accepted it. That's called practice, she said softly. Well, I replied, I think anyone who can stand that tall in a room full of idiots deserves someone on their side. Alira studied my face carefully. Then she said something unexpected. You're very different from the nobles. Good different or bad different? Good, she said. The kingdom watches. Over the next few weeks, the court watched us closely. Every conversation, every public appearance. Many nobles were still convinced the union would fail. After all, humans were impulsive. Aurelians were ancient. Their cultures were completely different. But something surprising started happening. Alira and I worked well together. Really well. She had centuries of royal knowledge. I had the stubborn creativity of a human. When trade negotiations stalled, I suggested solutions nobody else had considered. When political tensions rose, Alira navigated the delicate diplomacy with ease. Slowly, even the skeptical nobles began to notice. One evening, the queen summoned me privately. She studied me for a long moment. You care for her, she said. I do. Even knowing what the future holds. What does the future hold? She smiled faintly. Challenge. Conflict. The possibility of failure. I shrugged. Sounds like every good human adventure. The queen laughed quietly. Then she said something that stayed with me. You have done something remarkable, Daniel Reyes. What's that? You made my daughter believe she was wanted. Ending. Proving the kingdom wrong. The royal bond ceremony took place 3 months later. The throne hall was filled again, this time with representatives from across the galaxy. Where there had once been whispers of doubt, now there was curiosity, and perhaps a little respect. Alira stood beside me wearing ceremonial armor woven from living crystal. She looked confident, strong, and happy. Queen Valira addressed the court. For centuries, the choosing has determined the alliances of our kingdom. She paused. But today, we witness something greater. Her eyes moved to us. A future built not on perfection but on possibility. The ceremony began. Energy from the ancient bonding crystals flowed between Alira and me, forming a soft glow around our hands. The court watched silently. When the light faded, the queen spoke the final words. "The bond is complete." Applause filled the hall. But Alira leaned closer and whispered to me, "You know something?" "What?" "My mother once told me no one would ever truly want me." I frowned. "That seems hard to believe." "She was trying to protect me," Alira said softly. I squeezed her hand. "Well, looks like we proved the kingdom wrong." She smiled, bright and genuine. "Yes." Her eyes shone as she looked across the hall. The entire kingdom. Above us, the crystal ceiling opened to reveal the stars. And somewhere out there in the vast galaxy, a new story had begun. Not about perfection, not about tradition, but about two people who chose each other and built a future that no one else had been brave enough to imagine.